crowdfunding is the ultimate leveling of the field to, people who kind of grew up with the connections to fund their goals. I mean, that's really what it is crowdfunding gave the everyday entrepreneur, which I tend to think I am, didn't grow up with the connections in Wall Street or in Silicon Valley. And I looked at crowdfunding as a way for entrepreneurs who grew up in everyday cities like Phoenix, Arizona, where I come from before I moved to beautiful Miami. And it got me really excited. It showed me that this is a turning of the day where everyday entrepreneurs can leverage the power of the internet to raise capital. As we dug deeper, you started to realize that tokenization is a big part of that total equation, because I always tell people it's easy for an entrepreneur to say, hey, give me money today. The harder question to say is, how do I get my money back? And then we realized, kind of putting together the pieces of the puzzle, tokenization plus crowdfunding has the potential to change capital markets.
We are thinking about tokenization as a crowdfunding platform, is to really give investors a different type of way to interact with traditional kind of equity assets that they've had before. So, being able to have more liquidity through secondaries trading, and also just a different, more tangible way to hold and kind of interact with your investments. So on our end, we've also started to open up security token offerings that we do on our platform, utility token raises, and Republic ourselves too have really dedicated to the mission by creating our own note, which actually is a token that allows for all note investors to get upside into the Republic portfolio specifically as well. So we're super bullish in the area and are excited to see kind of just like how investors adapt and adopt tokenization in this way.
Crowdfunding is a new way not only for issuers to raise capital and be able to be entrepreneurial as necessary, but it's also a new way for investors to diversify their investments and participate in areas that until just a few years ago, they were not able to do. And to me and to us at Rialto, that's the most exciting thing. It's being able to take traditional capital markets to the next generation. And the next generation is not traditional. It may need to abide by much of the regulation. It may need to conform with some of the requirements, but nonetheless, it needs to think a lot more out of the box and a lot more innovatively in order to create wealth for the next generation and to create new businesses, new opportunities, and just new visions in all different industries. And that's what we're most excited about.
A few weeks ago as well, the Republic wallet. It's a self-custodied wallet that is super easy to set up. If you ever go through the flow, it really just takes a few minutes. And we've created this because we want investors to have a really nice experience and flow from being able to invest while also becoming token holders at the same time too. I think that so many companies are looking to move down the path of tokenization, but there aren't necessarily a lot of players in this space who have a coherent investor experience that really supports that. So with the wallet, being able to prompt investors to create a wallet within seconds while they're making their investment, being able to drop the token in there, and then opening up that secondaries exchange so they can actually trade and kind of liquidate that asset is something that we see as some of the main pillars of our investment platform, in the coming future. And it's something that we're really excited about. And so now it's really about getting a lot of our issuers on board, and then also just finding the people out there that are really looking to raise in this type of way, and raising up education in the area as well. I think that there's always going to be investors who are really excited about a new technology, but then we also have a lot of our really amazing legacy investors, who we want to be participating in these token raises, in the same way as well. So, a lot of focus on creating a nice and cohesive experience in that sense.
What do you think is going to be in store for 2024?
But I think something that's really exciting that we're kind of moving into a second phase of, especially with the tokenization aspect coming into play, is the ability to fractionalize and invest into real world assets. It really does change the game, because I think traditionally with startups, you have a much longer hold time. You don't get that immediate liquidity, and you also don't get that immediate like revenue as well, because startups don't necessarily pay dividends, right? So it's a pretty long-term commitment that you have to make. But now with the technology and tokenization and the different partners in the place, in this space, it makes it really easy for investors to get access to those projects that, they will have liquidity in, being able to liquidate their investment quite quickly. And then also at the same time too, we'll be able to see revenue in the form of dividends and payouts pretty immediately. And so I think that because of it, it just gives investors with a much different risk profile, finally an opportunity to play in a space, and also allows for different types of diversification for non-accredited investors. And because of that, I think it's a really, really exciting application and kind of new phase that we're seeing with Reg CF.
It's a McKinsey study of last year, $11 trillion in alternative investment. 220 billion of that is retail. 2% of the alternative market is from retail. That's a lot of potential to get retail involved. Reg CF is one of the ways to do that, getting people involved in funds that they could not touch before, alternative investments, real estate investments that they couldn't get involved in earlier. All of these things are opening up the entirety of the community and democratizing the markets for access. That's the key to this.
Of course, for a secondary market transaction to occur, you need sellers and buyers, right? So sellers, the more people that own a token, the more potential that someone wakes up and says, hey, I want to sell today, right? What I think is actually more the bigger thing that I want to put an emphasis on here, I'm going to think about one that everyone can apply to and everyone can resonate with. And that is the local business that they frequent on a consistent basis and being able to enjoy extra perks for being a token holder of the said restaurant, whether that's preferred seating, whether that's some sort of discount or drinks or whatever it may be. But the ability for someone to actually gain a benefit from something that they have invested into is a really nice benefit. And I'll tell you why that's so important. When you really think about why early stage investors typically invest into said company, it's usually because they're connected to that product from a personal reason. At least that's what I've seen from angel investors. They're investing into something that they want to use themselves. So to be able to help them have a written out incentive, something that is literally structured into kind of their rights as a shareholder, is something really nice. And, I think a restaurant is the most easy for everyone to understand type of incentive, because who doesn't want to go to their local restaurant and get treated a little bit more special?